Welcome, everyone. I'm Professor Sigmund, and today we're going to explore the foundations of psychology, what it is, how it works, and why it matters. This is the part of the course where we set the stage for everything else you'll learn. By the end of this session, you'll be able to define psychology, recognize common misconceptions, explain its goals, understand how psychologists conduct research, and identify the main perspectives that shape the field. Let's start at the very beginning. Psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. When I say behavior, I mean observable actions, things like speaking, laughing, running, or texting. Mental processes refer to what goes on inside your head. Your thoughts, emotions, memories, and perceptions. Psychologists use the scientific method to study these things, just like biologists or chemists do. One of the first things we need to clear up are the common misconceptions about psychology. Many people think it's just about helping people with problems, or that psychologists can read minds, or that psychology is just common sense. In reality, most psychologists hold a doctorate, are trained in scientific methodology, and base their conclusions on research, not guesswork. They develop theories, explanations for why and how behaviors occur, and those theories are tested systematically. If you want to think like a psychologist, you need to be a critical thinker. That means analyzing and evaluating information before accepting it as true, distinguishing between evidence-based conclusions and pseudopsychology, which is information that hasn't been tested scientifically, and staying skeptical rather than blindly accepting claims about behavior. Now, psychology as a science has four main goals. Describe behavior. What's happening? Predict behavior. When is it likely to happen again? Explain behavior. Why is it happening? Control or change behavior. How can we influence it in a desired direction? For example, if we notice that aggression increases in teenagers during certain situations, we can describe that behavior, predict when it might happen again, explain the underlying causes, and then take steps to reduce it. Let's talk about the scientific method. It's a set of steps for gathering and analyzing information. Define the issue or problem you want to study. Form a testable hypothesis, a prediction about the relationship between variables. Choose the right research strategy. Conduct the study. Analyze the data to see if your hypothesis is supported or rejected. Report the findings so others can verify or replicate your work. Replication, repeating a study to see if you get the same results, is essential for reliability. You may hear about the replication crisis, where many studies have failed to replicate, often due to small sample sizes or bias. Solutions include sharing data, using larger samples, and conducting meta-analyses. Psychologists use two main types of hypotheses. A predictive hypothesis is an educated guess about the relationships between variables. A causal hypothesis predicts how one variable will affect another. Predictive hypotheses are often tested with methods like naturalistic observation, case studies, surveys, and correlational research. Causal hypotheses require experiments, where one variable, the independent variable, is manipulated to see how it affects the dependent variable. In experiments, participants are often split into experimental and control groups. Sometimes the control group gets a placebo to rule out the placebo effect. Double-blind studies prevent both researchers and participants from knowing who is getting the treatment, reducing bias. Random assignment to groups is critical for true experiments. Without it, you have a quasi-experiment, which is more limited in the conclusions it can draw. Let's briefly compare the main research methods. Naturalistic observation studies people in their natural environment, but may be affected by reactivity. People behave differently when they know they're being watched. Case studies give detailed information about a small number of cases, but may not apply to the general population. Surveys can collect data from many people quickly, but are affected by question wording and honesty of responses. Correlational studies examine relationships between variables but cannot prove cause and effect. Experiments can determine cause and effect relationships, but may lack real-world applicability if done in a lab. All research with humans follows strict ethical guidelines. Psychologists must protect participants from harm, get informed consent, ensure confidentiality, allow withdrawal at any time, and debrief participants afterward. Deception can only be used when necessary and must be explained after the study ends. Research with animals must meet humane standards and follow legal regulations, overseen by special review boards. Finally, let's look at the major perspectives in psychology. Biological perspective focuses on physical causes of behavior. Evolutionary perspective looks at how natural selection shapes behavior. Psychodynamic perspective emphasizes unconscious motives and early experiences. Behavioral perspective studies how behavior is learned and shaped by the environment. Sociocultural perspective examines how society and culture influence behavior. Humanistic perspective focuses on personal growth and self-perception. Cognitive perspective investigates mental processes like memory and problem-solving. Many psychologists use an eclectic approach, combining perspectives to best explain behavior. That's the foundation. What psychology is, how it operates as a science, the tools and methods it uses, and the core perspectives that guide it. In our next session, we'll take these concepts and see how they play out in real-world applications, explore the different specialty areas of psychology, and highlight the important contributions of women and minorities in the field.